Thanks again, Gianna, for hopping on to another episode of Untapped Stories. I know we were chatting a bit before show, and obviously you've been a great Athletes Untapped coach for a while. So for parents and athletes who don't know, we'll go into your background, why you got into coaching, how you performed at a high level, D1 sports. But maybe for people who don't know much about you, if you could, before we get started with some great questions, if you could take people back to your early days as an athlete, really what sports meant to you growing up, and if you were always sort of like a track and field star, or if you played other sports along the way, and how do those early memories and early experiences in sports kind of shape who you became as an athlete?
Yeah, so I actually first started off as a swimmer. I started swimming competitively at the age of like 6 or 7. Like my mom had me in the pool since I started, since I was literally born. So I started swimming at a young age. I did that all the way up till my sophomore year of high school. But then throughout that time period, I also tried track in seventh grade. I was always someone that I didn't know if I would love running, but I saw a lot of my friends did it. So I happened to try track and I really loved it. And then they also pushed me to try cross country, which is something that I also found that I really loved.
Hmm.
So I kind of had to pick. It was hard to balance swimming and running because they're both very high level sports, and dedicating my time to both was really difficult.
Yep.
And I knew that I loved running more towards my high school career. So I decided to choose running. And I've been running, like I said, since seventh grade, and it's been something that I've enjoyed my whole life. In high school, I also ran for a club team in Morgantown, West Virginia, and that's kind of where I got my step really into running.
Okay.
Just having girls there to train with at a high level. I would go there for workouts maybe twice a week to run with some of the girls. So that's what really got me into running and what really challenged me and helped me become a better runner. And that's when I saw my potential and saw that, I have the ability to run at a high level. And ever since then, yeah, running's just been a big part of my life.
That's awesome. I mean,
Yeah.
I guess for parents and athletes who don't know too, I feel like that late entry into track and field for you, I'm sure it's unique. I feel like a lot of, I know at least
Yeah.
like track and field athletes, they start early, which probably could lead to burnout too. So maybe you had the advantage of starting later, being naturally athletic. But we get the conversation a lot from parents and athletes about multi-sport development. So what would you say to parents and athletes who maybe want to focus on one sports or letting their kids play multiple sports early on?
Yeah, I think my biggest recommendation is to allow your kids at a young age to participate in as many sports as possible, because then you give them the opportunity to try out many different things and see what they're good at. Because at the end of the day, you have to love what you do. And if you don't love it truly, you're not going to be successful. So I think being able to find what sport suits you and which one you enjoy the best is the best option. I mean, you don't want to force your kids into something that they don't want to do just because that was your dream. You have to let them live out their dreams and just have fun with it. So I'd say definitely try out as many sports as possible.
We agree. I mean, I think we only had one coach in particular who said that he recommends early sport development. I think most people wind up saying it's good to have it early on. There is probably a tipping point though, maybe high school ish, where if you want to focus on one sport and the athlete's all about it. I mean, I'm a parent myself too. Whatever the kid is kind of leading you down, but I feel like to force or to recommend to like a third grader to do one sport, it's just a lot. So what about I guess the track and field environment for athletes? It sounds like a recommendation for what you would say to really become the best when you're middle school, high school is to train on your own, I guess run and compete for your school. But it sounds like that club team had a big development for you too. So
Yeah.
how do you go about finding the right club and the right fit for you at that age?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I had a very small track and cross country team at my high school, so I really had no other option but to kind of reach out and look elsewhere. Some people are
Okay.
fortunate to where they have maybe a good high school program and a lot of, students on their team that want to participate in running, but for me, unfortunately, that wasn't the case. And my sister, she runs now too. But she was too young to kind of run with me at the moment. So I just did my
Yeah.
research. My mom did her research and we found the club team. Running is one of those sports though where you can kind of run anywhere, and there's always clubs and groups somewhere that you can reach out to help compete. I know a lot of schools like in where I'm from, like we don't have a lot of indoor meets in high school, so there are a lot of like
Okay.
club indoor teams, which is what I did. I'm sure that
Gotcha.
that's the case in some hotter areas too, not having indoor track. So there may be like some places that you could train like with club coaches or whatever that may be to help um, improve your training throughout cross country and outdoor track season. So just doing your research and just trying to find a place that has the potential to work with you and have you just enjoy it in general.
That's that's really smart. Whether it's finding a team like that or finding a group or a coach, I feel like there's typically all these stories we hear kind of one like crucial moment in an athlete's
Yeah.
development where they branch out and take that next step. They meet that next teammate, that coach, and their ability and their really their potential goes from average, solid athlete to great. So it sounds like you made that jump. Then I know you ran
Yeah.
had an awesome career at NC State. Maybe as you look back on your time in college, running D1, what would your message be to young athletes who want to follow in your footsteps and compete at a high level? Is it I'm sure it's not all sunshine and rainbows. So, what should athletes really expect when they get to that level, and how demanding is it to be a high level track and field athlete in college?
I think the biggest thing, like now looking back at my career and just having just the confidence and belief in yourself that you can do it. Running is one of those sports, it's very up and down. You're never going to have a smooth road. Sometimes you're going to have PRs, sometimes you're not going to be racing the best, sometimes you might be injured. But I think the biggest thing is just having self confidence and having fun with the sport because it's very demanding and draining sometimes, both physically and mentally. So I think just prioritizing fun and just having confidence in yourself is just the biggest thing. For me in high school, I remember I was always stuck on the fact that I'm not sure if you know what Foot Locker Nationals
Oh yeah,
was in NXN. That was a meet that I wasn't quite good enough to make in high school at the time, and I know that a lot of athletes got recruited based off of that, and if they made that meet they were
oh,
highly likely to go to a good Division 1 school, and that was something
okay,
for me that I struggled with because I wasn't running good enough to compete there. I never qualified. So that kind of held me back a little bit. I felt like it kind of hurt my mental state at that point. But, I reached out to coaches. I kept working on my training and just trying to focus on myself. And eventually those times came. So I think just staying focused on your path, staying focused on you, and just trying the best that you can is all that you can do. And don't worry about outside factors. If it's meant to work out, it'll work out in the end. So
I think that messaging is super important, especially for track and field. I mean, we hear a lot, maybe team sports, like more common team sports, like a
yeah,
baseball, a basketball, soccer. You have to find the right team, pick the right, kind of like AAU or travel club. Track and field is so individual, so
yeah.
it's kind of like that. I mean, tennis, golf, individual aspect where you have to really believe in yourself. So when you're talking to a young athlete, especially someone who's going through the ups and downs of just one growing up, but two trying to play and reach the high level in their sport, how do you build self confidence as a runner? I mean, it's so easy to say like next day is always there, kind of get up, but when things don't go your well, when you don't hit PRs, when you are injured, what can you do to muster up that self confidence?
I think the biggest thing for me, and it may sound silly, overall is just having fun with it and realizing, it's important to prioritize your sport and for it to mean a lot to you. But when it means so much to you that you don't realize that the world still functions without the sport, that's sometimes what really breaks you. And I think, like I said, it's important to trust the process, whether you're running good or you're bad, trusting your coach. Knowing that they have your best interest in mind, and just knowing that you're giving your all every single day is all that you can do. If you're doing everything the correct way, and it eventually lines up and works out, that's great. But if not, maybe it's not meant to be. But most of the time, you have a lot more potential than you think you do. So just staying positive and having fun with it when the times are hard. Um, but yeah, I think just overall, just having fun and looking back, it was so hard to have fun when you're not always doing the best. But at the end of the day, the world still spins, even if you have a bad race, and one bad race or one bad workout or run or whatever that may be. That doesn't define who you are as a runner. You're much more than just you're bad. You also have to think about the times that you run very well and just be fortunate of the fact that you have the opportunity to go out every day and compete and do something that it helps improve your physical fitness and also helps you push yourself to your potential. And some people don't have that opportunity.
Yeah.
So I think it's all about putting your thoughts into perspective, and that it's hard to say, to an athlete when they're going through a hard time, just be thankful. Because I was there, I was like, I know, I have to be thankful and I have to work through it, but it's hard. But I think just trying to step out of the sport sometimes and realize there's much more to life and a lot going on, that sometimes those rough moments aren't as bad as they seem. Just go out, have fun, put into perspective, you have the opportunity, and yeah,
I think you got to be grounded. I mean, you're absolutely right. Whether it's
yeah,
something besides that sport holding you down to
yeah,
earth, for me, it's a combo of like, faith, family, friends. But if you if you have something besides just what you're doing day to day, whether it's work or sports, like you will be
Yeah.
okay. But a lot of college athletes get lost in that because that's all they've ever chased, right? Is like playing D1,
Yes.
competing at a high level. When it doesn't go their way, their life falters. So, I mean, that's for young athletes chasing that dream. I hope they hear that message because you have to build those things early and keep them as priorities. And it's hard to shift that when you're 21, 22, if they never were, if all you ever did was
Yeah.
engulf in your sport. What about for typical like race day preparations? What's maybe a key tip or something you can share with athletes that would help them for the day of maybe the biggest race of the year? How can they get prepared mentally and physically that day?
I think physically, like, that's something that has to be expanded across many months and many seasons. You can't just, be ready to race the night before. Like physically, that's something that you have to work for months prior. And that's when I also kind of say, like, trust in your training, like everything that you've built so far to that moment. The night before the race or a few days before the race isn't going to impact really, like physically, how you're going to perform as a runner because there's so many more days and so much time in between racing that like few days aren't really going to matter. But I think mentally, just doing whatever kind of calms your nerves a little bit. I was someone that always got super nervous um, before races, and honestly, I never really broke that much, other than the fact that I listened to music a lot before runs, listened to podcasts, tried to do some of my hobbies that interested me to kind of take my mind off the fact that I had to race.
Okay.
And this is kind of my mindset towards like high school, going into college. But in college, I would say just prioritizing spending time with friends and just having fun with the sport is just the biggest thing. But if you're putting everything in and day out, physically, if the workouts are, I mean, they may not always go as planned, but if you're doing what you're told by your coach and you trust your coach and everything that they're telling you, I think just the biggest thing is just to have fun and just try to calm your nerves maybe in ways that um, excite you, do things that interest you rather outside of the sport rather than just consistently focus on running. Sometimes you got to get your mind off of the fact that you have to race the next day and whatever that may be for you. I think just really prioritizing that the night before a race or a few days before a race is really crucial.
That's smart. And like you said too, it's not a day or two preparation trick isn't going to make the 33
Yeah.
months of non-training, you're not going to make up for that. But if you can do little
Yeah.
things to stay prepared, I mean that those things
Yeah,
do help.
for
And
sure.
I got to ask, as a self-found runner in my like 20s and late 30s, I never ran before. I always played basketball and kind of did like
Yeah.
short sprint workouts, more lifting. But what's just a fun question? What's a go-to song for you to listen to before a big race? Do you have like an upbeat kind of song, or are you more like low, kind of low key, low vibes to stay mentally calm?
Honestly, I don't really have a song in specific. I feel like my music taste has changed so much recent. Like I feel like in high school I was like rap music. It had to be like really hardcore in order for me to like get into it. I
Okay.
couldn't listen to slow music. I'm like I need some hype music. But then it also kind of turned to like country a little bit. I really like Morgan Wallen, which is kind of weird to say listening to country before a race
Okay.
and which is kind of weird. And then towards the end, I really started prioritizing listening to some of my Christian music, like Brandon Lake.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Like he's one of my biggest influences and inspirations. So like listening to his, because his songs are like pretty upbeat
Yeah.
sometimes. So listening to those songs really helped like tap in to the fact that I have to race and yeah, just made me feel comfortable. So
I love that big spectrum
yeah,
there. It's not just like, oh yeah, one
yeah,
song
kind
my
of
entire
everything.
life. Rap to country to Christian. Just getting
Yeah.
nicer and nicer as the time's going. Oh man. What about before I get back to some coaching questions, just one quick kind of fun question for parents and athletes. What about shoes? I mean, I know it's probably even more so than basketball. People always worry about kind of apparel and footwear, but what's your recommendation for young athletes and maybe even for injuries in particular, who have foot problems? What's the in your particular opinion, what's the best running shoe out there?
Yeah, so in high school, when I started running in middle school, I tried like every shoe possible. But the one shoe that really stuck with me and that I didn't have like any foot pain or any type of ankle pain were the Brook Glycerins. I wore those since I started running. I switched up a few times just to see if maybe something else would work, just to try. But I always went back to the Brook Glycerins. Those were my favorites. In college, we were an Adidas school.
Okay.
So I did try Adidas and I like those as well, but I still went back to the Brook Glycerins. So I swear kind of by those shoes. They're my favorite. Right now, I'm actually, when I go run, I'm running in the New Balance 1080, I think.
Okay.
Those are actually, I like them a lot, but I'm also not running like super high mileage. So maybe my opinion would change if I was running a lot more. But running at my highest mileage in college, the Brook Glycerins were my favorite.
We have in no way, we're just starting this, so in no way do we have any product endorsements, but that sounds like a shoe everyone should get. If you ran that much in it and it didn't wear out, yeah, I've had some crappy running shoes, so I might pick up a pair myself. What about moving into coaching? So had a great career. I know you're back in Pittsburgh now, and kind of as you were in school and even after you got into private coaching. So maybe just for parents and athletes who don't know why private coaching is so important, or even other coaches who want to get into private coaching, what made you take that leap and sign up for a platform to offer lessons to young kids?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is just reflecting back on my journey. And I didn't, like I said, didn't have a team to run with. So I was kind of on my own. And I had to reach out to a private coach in order to get proper training. So for me, I really wanted to relay that onto those that I coach. I know that there's some athletes out there that don't have the best team, they don't have a big team, or they don't have many people to run with that at their pace or abilities. So they kind of need adjustments there. So I think for me, like the biggest thing was just reflecting back on my journey and knowing that I needed someone back then to help me kind of become the best version of myself. And it was my private coach that really got me to the next level. So I wanted to make that possible for the athletes that I coach as well, is to give everybody an opportunity, even if you don't have the resources or the availability to do so.
That's awesome. I mean, I think we hear most coaches get involved for that reason. Unless you're a
Yeah.
full-time trainer and you do this for a living, which is awesome, and you want to pick up
Yeah.
extra clients, most people who do it part-time, it's for really the love of the sport and the help of the kids. So
Yeah.
I figured you were aligned with that. What about one particular training tip or practice technique that you make sure every athlete does? Like if you're going to go do a track and field session, maybe you have a private coach, or if you don't, if it's with mom and dad or you're by yourself, what's one thing everyone can do at the track to really improve their speed time or just become a better overall athlete?
Yeah, I always tell my athletes like the biggest influence on your athletic potential as a distance runner is to really just build mileage and build volume in whatever you do. I think being able to build a base in your training, so maybe starting from zero and getting up to a certain mileage, but being consistent with that mileage is what's going to make you successful. Yeah, the speed workouts and the drills and the little things help you gain speed or help bring you to the next level, but in order to kind of get to that level you have to build a foundation in your mileage, which was the biggest thing that I've learned as a distance runner. I ran the 10K and 5K a lot, so having that base and building that throughout the summer was like the most crucial part of my training. Like, yeah, the workouts I did during season were important, but if I didn't have that summer build and that consistency, I wouldn't have been where I was at. So for me personally, like that's, I would say my biggest recommendation is just staying consistent and building mileage. Also, when I meet with my athletes, really prioritizing stretching and drills are another big thing. At NC State, we did a lot of drills, a lot of little warm up routines, and I think that that is what kind of took me to the next
Hmm.
level. It prevented me from getting injured a lot. Um, and it also just helped with the routine in general. So I think, yeah, just the main thing is prioritizing your mileage and building that consistency, but also little things such as drills and warm up, making sure you also prioritize those little things as well.
What about athletes who come to you? Maybe they're in elementary, middle school. They love track and field in general, and they're not sure yet, which is I'm sure fine at that point. If they want
Yeah.
to become a sprinter, distance runner, cross country, even like pole vaulting, whatever it is, how do you help them really find out what their strengths are? Like, can you tell early on with a kid if they're more so built for cross country or like traditional sprinting, track and field, or do you kind of have to feel that out as time goes on? Because I'm sure a lot of parents and
Yeah.
athletes listening be like, I have an athletic kid, I just don't know which route to go.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's something that you just have to find out as time goes on. Like it's easy to kind of pick up if someone's more speed oriented versus distance. I mean, if you're doing distance training for a long time and you happen to still be kind of struggling with the distances, but you maybe do a workout where you notice they have a really good kick at the end or they have a lot more speed, you can kind of
Hmm.
distinguish between the fact, oh, maybe you might be a distance runner versus a sprinter. I mean, I think everybody can run distance. It's just if you have more of the speed sense of things. I always used to say, like, I think everybody could be a distance runner, like if they wanted to, but to have the speed is, I mean, you definitely have to work for it, but it's definitely, I feel like, more of a natural thing. Like no matter how hard or how fast I try to run, I wouldn't be able to break a certain time. Like it's just not, it wouldn't be possible for me personally. I'm not saying that's the case for everybody, but like it was very easy to distinguish the fact that I was a distance runner. Just sometimes my form and just like the fact that I couldn't go past a certain time, but I could go for a really long time. So like seeing like little things in me, like how I used to see in me in athletes, kind of helps me distinguish the fact that, oh, okay, you're gonna have more speed, or also you're gonna have more distance in you.
So I feel like that's why coaches play such a big role, right? Like you've seen that, you've been there. For athletes who
Yeah,
don't know and they're just purely athletic, but speed could be their thing or distance might be better suited for them. It's like if you have someone guiding you in the right direction, you can make those decisions early. Not that you have to focus that early when you're sixth, seventh,
yeah,
eighth grade, but just kind of knowing your
yeah,
specialty, I think, is a really big thing. Like for me, quick personal switch. I wish when I was in seventh, eighth grade, someone would have told me for basketball, you're never going to grow taller than 6'3", 6'4", so learn how to dribble. But I was always the super tall kid, so it was like play center. Then you get to high school and it's never relevant. So you kind of have to have someone guiding you at that point. It's incredibly helpful. What about maybe more of the mental side of things for young athletes? So I know you're a little bit younger than me, but even for I feel like your generation, it's probably different in terms of like the pressures now that kids have on them. So
yeah.
what are you seeing with athletes nowadays when it comes to like maybe facing burnout, or obviously there's a big presence with social media, and I think a lot of kids put their self-worth into, athletes they see online or peers they see online. How would you help kids stay mentally focused, kind of stay within their training and not get in their own heads, especially for an individual sport like track and field?
Yeah. Yeah, I would say that that's something towards the end of my college career that I really struggled with was the mental aspect of running. The physical kind of came on its own, but the mental aspect, I think, with running is like the biggest negative influence on the sport. It's such an individualized sport. It's so easy to compare yourself to others. My coach, Lori Henna, she always used to tell me that comparison is the thief of joy. That if you're constantly comparing yourself to someone else, you're never going to see the joy and the success that you have because you're so worried about someone else. And she always tried to tell me and tell my teammates, like, you need to focus on yourself and what you can do that day. It's important to run with teammates and push teammates and stuff like that, but ultimately you kind of have to focus on yourself and do what you can do day in and day out, and eventually it'll all connect because everybody has, the one good thing about the sport of running is everybody has their role, whether you're the best on the team or the worst. Everybody has their role, everybody has their strength, and that's what I try to relay to my athletes. Like, no matter how fast you are, it doesn't matter. Like, at the end of the day, you're human and you need to push yourself to your ability. And if you can push yourself to the hardest you can, that's a success on its own. You can't compare yourself to others because at the end of the day, you can't change your situations or circumstances, but you can change your outlook and your perspective on that. So I think, yeah, just the biggest thing um, is to just have confidence, to not compare yourself to others. For me, that was really hard at the Division 1 level, is trying not to compare myself to other people. I mean, when I thought I did well, there was always someone that did better, and it was like I couldn't see the greatness that I had because I was still in the sport. But now that I'm outside and looking in, I look back and I'm like, why wasn't I proud of myself
Yeah.
for everything that I accomplished? Because I mean, it was such a cool thing that I was able to run with the team that I was able to, that I was even able to say that I could, keep up with some of those girls was just like a success on its own. So I think just being able to put into perspective that you are a lot capable of more than you think. And sometimes your mind is your worst enemy. If your mind tells your body to do something, like it's gonna do it.
Yeah.
And if it tells it not to do something, your body's not gonna follow it. So the most important thing is you have to find ways to kind of trick your brain in a way. And I know that's different for everybody. But for me, I feel like towards the end of my career, I wasn't able to figure that out. But it took me now to be a coach to for me to finally see that. So when I'm coaching athletes, like at the college I coach right now, I see a lot of my old self and a lot of the girls, which kind of in a way makes me sad, but also helps me like find that encouragement to want to give to them because I know that I was in those shoes once and now like I feel like that's my role as a coach and honestly that's why I want to coach is because I want every athlete to see their potential whether they're the best on the team or not, that everyone has their strength and everyone has their purpose and the best thing you could do every day is just try your best.
I mean, the thief of joy thing is so true, though, especially for an individual sport like track and field. Like, you're so measured by numbers, whether it's right or wrong. Like other sports, basketball, baseball, you could arbitrarily say, I had a good day. Maybe I had more rebounds, but not points. Soccer, I scored goals, but I played. It's like you can make up reasons why you did okay. Track and field, it's like you hit your number or you didn't, or you were the best or you were in the middle of the pack. So I think for people struggling with that, I'm sure every individual sport athlete does,
Yeah,
tennis,
for
golf, track
sure.
and field. It's like you just have to know to enjoy it, which is again hard to do in the moment. But if you have people like you in your corner, I think it makes a big difference. What about one of my last questions? You've been a private coach. Sounds like you had a great private coach, and now you're coaching in college.
Yeah.
What's a common theme or a common trend you see in most great coaches that parents and athletes should look out for? Is it like a combo of awesome background and mentorship, or is it like still nowadays news like maybe old school being tough on kids with like tough love type of thing? Like what in 2025, upcoming 2026,
Yep.
makes a great coach really stand out nowadays?
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing that I've noticed is one, communication is like the biggest thing. Being able to communicate with your athletes and be able to talk out things with them is like the biggest thing. I think for me, it was really hard to communicate my thoughts, especially when I was so stubborn. Just being able to have that communication with your coach is important because little things like expressing, like, if something's bothering you, like your coach isn't going to know if you haven't something bothering you, like an injury or something. So being able to communicate that, also being able to communicate if maybe you're struggling mentally. A lot of practice is in training is going to be revolved around how you feel. And if you don't communicate that with your coach, you can't make any progress further. I also
Yeah.
think having experience as an athlete, as on top of being a coach, just having that background, I think is also the biggest thing. Not saying that you can't be a great coach if you don't have a running background, but I think being able to relate and have a different perspective of the sport really helps, like me personally, connect with my athletes because I can look back and say, hey, I once struggled with this. How did I get through this situation? So I think, yeah, like you don't have to be a great coach, or you don't have to be an athlete or a runner in the sport to be a great coach, but I think having that background really helps. And I know most coaches, like at NC State, every single staff member that was at NC State and is currently at NC State has ran for NC State,
Hmm.
has been associated with the team. So they not only understand NC State and the culture, but they understand the sport and they're able to connect with us. And I think that's one reason why NC State was so successful, is because every person there had an experience with the sport and with the school. So I think that's one of my biggest things too, pieces of advice. And yeah, just like I said, communication, being able to have a coach that makes you feel comfortable enough to communicate them, that allows you to be yourself, and just makes the sport more fun. I know Lori Hennis was the main reason why I went to NC State. As soon as I met her, she was like my second mom, and I knew that that's where I wanted to go. Before I knew I had a few visits after, and I knew as soon as I met her, like that was it. Just because she was easy to talk to, she was very empathetic, and she's just very understanding, and she wanted success for me not only in the sport but as a human being. And I think too, having a coach where you can distinguish, oh, like they're a great coach and they're going to help you physically and through the sport, but also a coach that cares about you outside of the sport is also very important.
Maybe my last question, Gianna. So I love asking this one, and we usually get some cool reflection thoughts. If you can go back in time, so maybe put yourself in the shoes of Gianna, who's in sixth grade, swimming's your life, and then you're like, oh, track and field, seventh grade, let me try it. Having learned everything you did, taken the sport so far, now you're a coach. If you can go back and coach yourself and tell yourself one thing in particular at that seventh grade level, what would you say?
I think the biggest thing for me, I think the one thing that I would say is to just have confidence in yourself, to just believe in yourself. No matter what happens at the end of the day, just be present and in the moment, enjoy what you can do. My senior year was actually COVID. So for me, when I look back and I get to think of, oh, what would have happened if I could have raced that senior year? Maybe I would have won states again, or maybe I would have beat my record, or who knows. But I always think back to, I should have enjoyed my junior year more than I did. and I should have been present because I didn't know that that would be my last time running. So I always think back to that moment, like, you have to enjoy what you do all the time if that's what you truly want to do, and stay present in the moment because you never know when it's going to be your last time. So I would say too, just think of everything, like the sport that you love and want to do, if especially if that's running, like every time you go out for a run, think that it may be, and it sounds not the greatest, but think, maybe this is you never know, like this may be my last run. Like it
Yeah,
may be the last day I enjoy it. Maybe something happens. So it's just kind of run like it's your last time because you never know what could happen, but also just have fun. And I would say to my younger self, just have confidence because that's something that I never had growing up.
that's an amazing message to end on. I think I've heard similar things over the years. I remember one coach in particular, volunteer, it was eighth grade basketball coach, and I think he
Yeah.
worked in the union or something in contracting, but he was like, guys, enjoy every single game because you never know when it's going to be your last. He got to play maybe one
Yeah.
year in college and that's it, but it's like it goes so fast. But when you're in the thick of it, it's so hard to think
Yeah.
about that when you're the eighth grade kid who wants to get to that level.
Yeah.
So I think the balance, right? You have to chase goals, you have to be competitive, but if you don't enjoy it and you take it for granted, then probably honestly you probably won't get as far as you want because you won't have that like self belief and self confidence. So
Yeah. For sure.
honestly, Gianna, this was so much fun. I think we have a lot of awesome nuggets
Yeah.
to share, especially about your career, the coaching tips, even the fun stuff. Like I think I'm just as excited to share your coaching tips about the music stuff and the shoes because those two are great
Yeah.
tips for parents just
For
to
sure.
know what to get into. But thank you for
Yeah.
coming on, sharing your feedback.
Yeah.
I got to know you're not coaching right now for us. You're doing the college stuff, but in the future, I mean, you're a great resource for parents. So I hope people follow
Yeah.
you, kind of stay up to date with what you're doing because, yeah, in the track and field world, you're definitely a good person to stay in touch with.
Yeah.
But appreciate
Thank you
you
so
making the time.
much. Yep. Thank you.
Thanks, Gianna.